YouTubers, and back for another YouTube video of what would have happened if this were in real life RhinoTMRT gameplay series. Now, I've been trying over and over and over again to get this to work. I mean, I do have a good idea in my head, in which case it kind of does make a lot of sense. And, yeah, I guess I wanted to go with this, so yeah, I guess it's all perfectly good and all that. Well, so I easily, now me and Shane, we'd still be able to do YouTube videos, like, you know, how we're still, you know, doing all that, and, you know, still working all that, so, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Anyways, this is what would have happened if the Bolt 2 movie were in real life. So we head up in the beginning where Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino, well, technically not RhinoTMRTGamePlay, just Rhino, and Penny and Penny's mother are all enjoying themselves right after getting away from the Hollywood agent that tried to keep them where they stood. And you know, it actually is a perfectly good sequel. So now I mean that it is going perfectly well. That is until when so this takes place in the future. So that is until when Penny from Bolt actually goes to school and says goodbye to Bolt and Mittens and Rhino. They all say goodbye to the three of them and Penny's mother, and yeah, I guess that's kind of how it plays out. And then Penny comes back, and then we get to, and then instead of the, and then for Bolt 2 they've actually centered around where Penny is finally where we get to see Penny's school from Bolt's school. We get to see that, and and her being a student and all, we get to see that become a reality, which kind of just makes sense. That is until when everyone in Penny's school actually realizes that that Penny from Bolt was actually famous. So this is where that is. Yeah, every other teacher enjoyed Penny and just enjoyed her, and yeah, I guess that kind of already narrows all that down. However, meanwhile, there's an evil scientist who of course goes by the name who of course is known as as Dr. Switchy. Well, that's the villain's name, but as a teacher, he's known as Mr. Remy. So yeah, Mr. Remy Mr. Remy and all the other teachers and all of Penny from Bolt's teachers, all of them enjoy her, all the students, and yeah, they see her as like a cool person and whatnot, which I guess, and here's how it goes upon. That is until, so then meanwhile, Dr. Switchy Meanwhile, Dr. Switchy then easily appears at the school, which of course Dr. Switchy is now a confirmed villain of Penny, and then Bolt from the movie Bolt actually all appear, and Bolt easily gets inside the school, and protects Penny and all that, which is kind of very obvious. However, Bolt gets rid of the makes the other, the Dr. Switchy guy. He gets him to, he pushes him away from the school and out to the door area, and Mittens and Rhino also help, which I guess is kind of very obvious. And meanwhile, then Penny tells Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino to run back home before the authorities find out. And Yeah, I guess so. So here, Bolt 2 is sort of like is somewhat sort of a superhero type of movie. I mean, where Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino has to break into Penny's school in order to save her from the supposed Dr. Switchy, whose real name is basically just who they don't know is actually Mr. Remy. So meanwhile, Mr. Remy. Then meanwhile, we finally come back to Dr. Switchy coming back to his teacher form, with Dr. Switchy easily coming back to Mr. Remy without Penny or anyone, without Penny, Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino, or anyone in Penny's school noticing. And well, Penny becomes and then Penny becomes, like the popular girl and all that. A lot of people like her, and Bolt and Mittens and Rhino. They enjoy all of them, and I guess that kind of just makes sense. So yeah, this movie. I guess it's kind of very great, and yeah, I mean, for the best part, it's actually perfectly fine. So yeah, so eventually, Mr. Remy eventually comes up with a plan to trap Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino and get Penny, but it's going to take him so many years, in fact, that even after elementary school. So then eventually, so many years later. Penny and Bolt and Ryan. Penny is a grown up, and Penny is all grown up. Penny is a grown up. Penny from Bolt is now a grown up teenager who's almost graduating high school, which gives Mr. Remy as a Dr. Switchy a little bit of time to put an end to Penny and Bolt and Mittens and Rhino. So which gives him a few couple of days and weeks to finish his plan. So here we have a much older version. Here we have a much older version of Mr. Remy as Dr. Switchy. So yeah, he's not very old. I mean, he's not like no he's not no Mr. Remy as Dr. And as Dr. Switchy is not old. I mean, Dr. Switchy is still the same age. It's Mr. Remy that. So Mr. Remy is actually a little bit like, a little bit older, but not too older though. So yeah, I guess that kind of does make a lot of sense. So eventually, just a few couple of days and weeks before Penny graduates, she eventually comes across a rival who of course is known who of course is known as who of course is known as who of course she comes across Penny's rival, who supposedly goes by the name Winnie, because, well, she wins all the time. So yeah, so Penny's rival Winnie obviously goes against her, and the best way possible. And I actually think this is a perfectly good sequel. So meanwhile, Penny comes home crying, and Penny's mother, well, Vinny, obviously, who of course Vinny tells Penny that she has to somewhat stand up, and also Vinny actually tells Penny from Bolt about a speech giving her a little bit of a speech telling her that Bolt is the real guardian, and that Bolt may have been his true guardian by his death. That Bolt may have been his true. That Bolt may have been his true guardian friend, but yeah, but Bolt may have been his true guardian friend, but his true guardian was actually Penny's true guardian was herself the whole time, very different. So yeah, this gives Penny the courage to go. This gives Penny the courage from Vinny, her mother, to go put an end to Winnie, to go end her rivalry with Winnie, and well, you get and you get the gist of all of it. So Penny eventually goes up to Winnie and goes up to Winnie's house and tells Winnie that they have a much bigger threat, called Doctor Switchy, and of course, she tells her that, and then she says, "Well, yeah, I guess I'll do that." So, yeah, the plot twist is that she was once a rival, but now is now turned a rival turned good, which is actually the best part about it. Bolton, Mittens, and Rhino are easily on this adventure, in which case are easily on this fight in battle, which is actually very good. Even Benny is okay with them going out. So all six of them eventually decide to go put an end to Dr. Switchy, who they don't know as Mr. Remy to begin with. So yeah, I guess that kind of does make a lot of sense. And by the way, Winnie is actually the cousin of Penny. So Winnie is actually the cousin of Penny, and the daughter and the other daughter of Vinny, Penny's mother. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear and all. So yeah. So eventually they find Dr. Switchy, and then, they have a big fight and battle scene, and well, they have a big fight and battle scene in like the school, at like Penny's school and all that. And it's actually very, very great and all, which is actually super great and all. Well, yeah, I guess so. Rhino obviously has some funny moments. Rhino from Bolt obviously has some funny moments in there, which is just to be clear with you all. And then of course there's while they're having their fighting battle scene, all the other students of Penny's school actually helps them, because they idolize her by helping her in her rebellion in her fight and battle against Dr. Switchy. And they all eventually go after him and his supposed army that he has. I don't know which army it is. It's just some random old human army, which I guess kind of does make a lot of sense. Yeah, and I guess it kind of does. So yeah. And then eventually, after the big fighting battle scene, they find out that Dr. Switchy was actually Mr. Remy all along. And then it turns out that Mr. Remy, as Dr. Switchy, was actually in fact Penny's real father all along. So Remy was actually the husband of Vinny. So Remy was actually the husband of Vinny, which makes Remy Penny from Bolt's daughter, which is actually a very great plot twist, if I do say so myself. So eventually Dr. Switchy, as Mr. Remy, eventually goes to jail. Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino obviously enjoy themselves. And Rhino has one last funny moment for everyone to enjoy before the movie ends, and then the credits roll, the end, and then we get a post-credit scene where Mittens is the one where Mittens is actually dreaming about being in Bolt's position. So yeah, that's the post-credit scene for that. Yeah. And that's what would have happened if the Bolt 2 movie were in real life. Now, I mean, I couldn't come up with another better storyline for this. I mean, it does seem like a perfectly good sequel. I mean, I wanted to do this one, and it felt very obvious because, I wanted to do this one mainly because one of the characters is named Rhino, and I actually enjoyed the character. And I think the only thing that I enjoyed in there was actually the character Rhino in the movie Bolt. So yeah, I guess I wanted to do this one, and I guess it just felt very obvious. So yeah, I guess that's it. So yeah. Anyways, that's it for today. Peace out. Bye bye.